I actually sent the script over to Gene Hackman. We had known each other for years, but somehow we had never managed to work together. And let me tell you, he was in a serious mood back then. He looked at me and said, "I don't want to do any more violent pictures. I am just tired of it." He told me flat out, "I have been involved with way too many of them." For literal decades, Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman stood as two of Hollywood's most commanding forces. Their legendary careers were forever linked by raw talent and uncompromising grit. Now, at 96 years old, Eastwood is finally breaking his silence about Hackman's passing, confirming rumours that many had long suspected. It goes beyond their intense on-screen rivalries to a friendship that ran much deeper than the public ever realised. Clint's words are offering a rare, raw glimpse into the truth behind their bond. So what exactly did he reveal? Brace yourselves, because the answer might just completely change the way you see their legendary connection. Let's rewind to Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman's very first encounter before we dive into the bombshell Clint has finally dropped. Regarding Gene's death, we need to take a step back to where it all began, the moment their paths first crossed and the undeniable friction that followed. Believe it or not, Eastwood and Hackman first appeared on the same set way back in 1971 for The Beguiled. It was a dark Southern Gothic drama set right in the middle of the Civil War that brought them together. But man, their contrasting styles were evident from day one. Eastwood starred as John McBurney, a wounded Union soldier who gets taken in by a group of Southern women at a secluded boarding school. Hackman actually had a minor role as a soldier, but even with his limited screen time, you could feel the tension simmering behind the scenes. By then, Eastwood was already carving out his image as Hollywood's quiet, rugged, tough guy. Fresh off his days as a TV cowboy, he knew how to command a scene, with minimal dialogue relying on that famous steely gaze and stoic presence. His approach was dead simple. Strip away the excess fluff and let the action do the talking. Hackman, on the other hand, thrived on depth and messy emotion. He was known for totally immersing himself into his characters, dissecting their psychology and infusing every single scene with layers of complexity. His performances were rich and layered, his expressions calculated, and his presence was undeniably intense. This clashing technique didn't go unnoticed. Eastwood reportedly found Hackman's style overly calculated, while Hackman saw Eastwood's stripped-down approach as too simplistic. They were two absolute powerhouses, each operating with a different philosophy on acting, and neither man was willing to bend. Their roads to Hollywood glory were anything but easy. Eastwood's journey started in California, where he moved around frequently with his family. He actually had a passion for music that led him to performance, but it was his role as Rowdy Yates in Rawhide that gave him his first real taste of recognition. Playing that rugged cowboy for years trained him to say more with less, a skill that became the bedrock of his acting career. Hackman's rise was a different story. Born in San Bernardino, California, he didn't have the luxury of an early break. He bounced between odd jobs, working as a clerk, a messenger, doing anything to get by. Before finally deciding to pursue acting training at the Pasadena Playhouse, he took whatever small, thankless roles came his way until the French Connection rocketed him to superstardom. His intense, unfiltered performances made him the go-to actor for complex, deeply flawed characters, where Eastwood's characters spoke in measured tones and let their actions tell the story. Hackman's characters felt everything. He was raw, he was expressive, and he was never afraid to show true emotional vulnerability. It was this fundamental difference that caused so much friction on the set of The Beguiled. Eastwood, a man of few words, stuck to the script, while Hackman pushed for deeper emotional layers, questioning every motivation and looking for nuance where Eastwood preferred silence. This wasn't just about acting styles, it was about two men who had fought their way to the top through sheer determination. They were not handed success on a silver platter. They had to claw their way through Hollywood's relentless industry. Both had military backgrounds, Eastwood in the Army, Hackman in the Marine Corps, which shaped their discipline and resilience. They were men who valued hard work, who didn't indulge in the vanity of stardom. and who treated acting like a tradecraft rather than a spectacle. But despite their differences, a mutual respect existed. They may not have always agreed, but they recognised in each other something rare, a true authenticity and a refusal to compromise their artistic integrity. Their paths continued to cross over the years, sometimes as collaborators, sometimes as indirect competitors, each measuring their performances against the other. Hollywood was changing fast in the late 60s and 70s. The polished, picture-perfect heroes of the old days were fading, making room for something grittier, more real. Eastwood and Hackman weren't just a part of this transformation, they led it. Eastwood's silent gunslingers and Hackman's morally complex lawmen redefined what it meant to be a leading man. Their performances were raw, flawed, and most importantly, human. They weren't the kind of actors who played into Hollywood's glitzy scene. You wouldn't find them at endless red carpet events or engaging in empty publicity stunts. Their friendship wasn't about public displays of camaraderie. It was quieter, built on shared experiences and professional admiration. Their friendship? Forget about flashy red carpet hugs or public displays of camaraderie. Their bond was something quieter, built on the gritty reality of shared experiences and deep professional admiration. These two giants didn't need to exchange 1,000 words to get where the other was coming from. It was an unspoken acknowledgement that they had both trekked the same rocky path. They had fought the same wars in the industry and earned their spots among the legends. Their rivalry wasn't fueled by animosity, but rather a silent, steely challenge. Each man constantly pushed the other to reach new heights. While Eastwood was busy defining the Western genre with his iconic gritty man with no-name persona, Hackman was absolutely dominating the world of crime dramas and intense thrillers. When one ruled the box office, you could bet the other wasn't far behind, usually clutching an award-winning performance. They weren't just actors to one another. They were living benchmarks, constant reminders of the sheer level of excellence required to stay seated at the very top. As time marched on, their separate lanes would intertwine in ways neither could have predicted, culminating in a collaboration that would totally redefine both of their careers. And it would lock their legacies into Hollywood history forever. But while their early years were defined by silent competition and the occasional creative clash, the bombshell truth Eastwood has finally confirmed about Hackman's twilight years cast their entire relationship in a completely different, shocking light. Don't go anywhere because we are going to reveal that heartbreaking aspect in just a moment. But first, let's look at how Eastwood and Hackman navigated the beast of fame. As their careers flourished and went stratospheric, Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman found themselves taking very distinct routes through the Hollywood landscape. Even though both were celebrated as acting titans, Eastwood wasn't satisfied with just standing on his mark in front of the camera. By the time the late 1970s rolled around, he took the reins of his creative destiny, stepping up into the roles of director and producer. His first venture in the director's chair, Play Misty for Me, was a massive gamble, followed closely by the action-packed phenomenon Dirty Harry. This shift marked the beginning of his major transition from an on-screen icon to a serious filmmaker shaping stories from behind the lens. Throughout the 1980s, Eastwood's massive presence in Hollywood expanded way beyond just his acting credits. He directed classics like the outlaw Josie Wales' Unforgiven, and later the gritty Gran Torino, proving his ability to craft films with serious depth. He brought complexity and thought-provoking themes to the table. His evolution into a filmmaker wasn't just an experiment, it was a defining career power move. Over the years, Eastwood morphed into a master storyteller, snagging Academy Awards for heavy hitters like $1 Million Baby and Unforgiven. This solidified his place as one of the industry's most respected directors. However, while Eastwood was busy exploring the world of directing, Hackman remained fully dedicated to the art of acting. He embraced roles that showcased his incredible versatility, from the intense, suspense-filled brilliance of The Conversation to the inspiring, heartwarming sports drama Hoosiers. His knack for immersing himself in diverse characters, whether playing a hardened detective or an empathetic coach, earned him widespread recognition and a shelf full of awards. The way they handled their massive fame really reflected their personalities. Eastwood was notoriously private, dodging the limelight whenever possible. He preferred a quiet life far away from Hollywood's constant attention. He allowed his work to speak for itself. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he never indulged in the traditional chaotic celebrity lifestyle. He opted instead for quiet spaces and quality family time. Hackman, on the other hand, was a bit more comfortable navigating the public eye. While he didn't actively chase the attention, he wasn't one to shy away from it either. He was known for being a little more outgoing and expressive. Yet he never let the fame game dictate his career choices. Rather than chasing massive blockbuster paychecks, he consistently selected roles that genuinely intrigued and challenged him. His dedication to the craft made him one of Hollywood's most respected actors, known for delivering layered and emotionally charged performances every single time. Though Eastwood was often viewed as the bigger commercial movie star, Hackman possessed a quiet resilience that made him just as compelling to watch. Their approaches to success were different, yet both thrived in their own way, leaving behind legacies that shaped the landscape of American cinema forever. But the real mystery is this: what drove Gene Hackman to leave Hollywood right at his peak, vanishing without a grand farewell? Stay glued to your screen. We are diving into Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman, a true collision of talent and tension. As Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman saw their careers skyrocket, their paths diverged in some truly striking ways. Eastwood, never content with just being the face in front of the camera, took greater control over his entire project lineup. He aggressively expanded into directing and producing by the time the 1970s were coming to a close. His first major step behind the camera came with Play Misty for Me, followed quickly by the iconic Dirty Harry. These films not only cemented his status as a Hollywood tough guy, but also signalled the true beginning of his career as a filmmaker. By the 1980s, Eastwood was directing films that pushed way beyond the typical action hero roles everyone knew him for. Movies like the outlaw Josie Wales' Unforgiven and Gran Torino showcased his ability to craft deeply layered characters and narratives. With Academy Awards for Unforgiven and Million Dollar Baby, Eastwood proved he was far more than just a leading man. He was a director of remarkable skill, earning critical acclaim for his unique vision and storytelling capabilities. Hackman, on the other hand, remained fiercely dedicated to the pure craft of acting. He continued to deliver compelling powerhouse performances in films like The Conversation and Hoosiers, earning his keep, with nominations piling up for his uncanny ability to dissolve into complex, layered roles, whether he was channeling a gritty, hardened detective or a motivational sports coach. Hackman's dominance on screen was impossible to ignore. Now contrast that with Eastwood, who became incredibly picky about his acting gigs as he pivoted hard toward the director's chair. Hackman, he lived for the transformation, preferring to stay firmly in front of the lens rather than calling the shots from behind it. And let's talk about how they handled the limelight. Their strategies were night and day. Eastwood was notoriously elusive, practically allergic to the Hollywood glitz. He kept his private business locked down tight, refusing to feed the tabloid beast or let the public peek behind the curtain. He wanted the movies to do the talking, steering clear of the circus that usually comes with Tinseltown fame. That calculated distance actually kept his career alive longer, letting him slide smoothly from gun-toting hero to a revered auteur without the baggage. Hackman wasn't exactly chasing paparazzi, but he was definitely more accessible. He didn't mind the perks of the job, though. He never let the flashing lights mess with his head. While Clint cultivated this aura of silent, brooding menace, Gene brought a raw kinetic energy to the screen, totally burying himself in whoever he was supposed to be. For him, it was always about the story, not the paycheck. He chased roles that scared him, turning down easy money for characters that actually required some heavy lifting. That is why he was the guy other actors looked up to, versatile, respected, and absolutely obsessed with the work. But when these two titans finally collided for Unforgiven in 1992, those stylistic differences didn't just disappear, they exploded. Eastwood was pulling double duty as star and director, aiming to flip the script on the classic Western genre. He didn't want shiny heroes. His guy, William Money, wasn't some larger-than-life legend. He was a beat-down, broken man, dragged back into the mud and violence he thought he'd escaped. Then you had Hackman as little Bill Daggett, a sheriff so corrupt and brutal it made your skin crawl. He brought a terrifying authenticity to the part. While the on-screen beef was electric, the vibes when the cameras stopped rolling were just as thick with tension. See, Clint runs a tight ship. He is famous for his no-nonsense style, get it done, keep it moving, don't overthink it. He believed actors gave their best stuff when they weren't exhausted from endless repetition. His motto was simple: let the scene breathe naturally and don't kill the momentum. Hackman, on the other hand, was a dissector. He wanted to peel back every layer of the character, scrutinising every syllable, every twitch and every hidden meaning. While Eastwood commanded the set with a whisper, Hackman wasn't afraid to speak up. If he thought a scene needed more juice, he said so, and that fundamental clash in philosophy sparked some serious friction on the set of Unforgiven. It was a battle of wills. Hackman's instinct to dig deeper often slammed right into Eastwood's wall. Clint wanted lean gut instinct reactions, not a doctoral thesis on the character's feelings. There were plenty of times Gene wanted to run it back to find something new, only for Eastwood to yell cut and move on to the next setup. Hackman found that incredibly aggravating, while Clint saw it as essential discipline to keep the movie from getting bogged down. One specific incident really highlighted the disconnect. They were in the middle of a heavy scene, and Hackman decided to go off-road improvising to shift the emotional gravity in a direction that wasn't on the page. Eastwood, who likes his sets controlled and precise, shut it down instantly. He told Gene, calm but ice cold, to stick to the script as written. For an actor like Hackman, who was used to having total creative license that felt like being put in a straitjacket, he was accustomed to directors who loved that kind of exploration, so bumping up against Eastwood's rigid efficiency was a serious shock to the system. Yet even with the butting heads, the mutual respect never really evaporated. Both men had survived the Hollywood meat grinder for decades. Eastwood had cemented his legacy on both sides of the camera, and Hackman had a shelf full of Academy Awards proving he was the best character actor in the game. They knew the other guy was brilliant, even if they wanted to strangle each other over the process. It didn't help that the power dynamics were tricky. By the time they shot Unforgiven, Clint was the boss, an established A-list director, while Hackman was strictly the talent. That shift meant Gene, who was usually a dominant force on any set, had to take orders from a peer who was also his co-star. Eastwood held the reins, setting the tempo and the tone. Hackman wasn't used to being managed like that, and he definitely struggled with having his wings clipped. It was a massive ego check. Their ages played a subtle part too. Eastwood, hitting his early 60s, was fully comfortable in his second act as a filmmaker, while Hackman, pushing late 50s, was still obsessed with perfecting the pure art of acting. Clint had spent years curating his legacy from the director's chair, while Gene was still hungry to deliver. That one untouchable performance, those different headspaces, coloured everything they did on Unforgiven, creating a low-level hum of tension that threatened to boil over. But here is the kicker. Despite the headaches, Unforgiven stands as a monument to what these two could do. That real-life friction didn't hurt the film. It actually fueled it, making the deadly showdown between their characters feel dangerously real. Eastwood's tight control colliding with Hackman's explosive. That raw, explosive performance triggered a perfect storm, sweeping the Academy Awards and snatching up Best Picture, along with the Best Director trophy for Eastwood. Even if they didn't always see things through the same lens, the sheer electricity of their partnership left a permanent scar on cinema history. These were two absolute titans of Hollywood, each stubborn in their methods, who came together to craft a movie that remains untouchable as one of the greatest westerns ever filmed. But what is the real story Eastwood spilled about Hackman's final years that completely flips the script on what we thought we knew? Keep your eyes locked on the screen. Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman, a saga of two massive yet diverging legacies. For decades, Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman were the heavyweights of Hollywood parallel giants who, despite their clashing styles, practically chiseled the industry out of stone. But while Eastwood kept his foot on the gas, refusing to tap the brakes, Hackman dropped a bombshell that left fans and fellow actors completely floored. He walked away. Hackman's retirement wasn't some flashy spectacle. There was no grand farewell tour, no tear-jerking final interview. One minute he was the gold standard of acting and the next he was a ghost. By the late 1990s, after masterpieces like The French Connection, The Conversation and Unforgiven had solidified his status as a god among men, he quietly exited. He had absolutely zero left to prove to anyone. More importantly, he had other itches to scratch, writing, painting and just living a normal life without the paparazzi in his face. Unlike so many stars who cling desperately to fading fame, Hackman made the power move to exit on his own terms. Eastwood, on the other hand, couldn't even process that kind of departure. The word retirement isn't even in his dictionary. While Hackman embraced a quiet life, totally detached from the business, Eastwood ploughed ahead with a drive that bordered on obsession. He wasn't just acting, he was directing, producing, and completely reinventing his game. We are talking about hits like $1 Million, Baby Gran Torino, and American Sniper, which weren't just projects, they were hard proof that his storytelling instincts were sharper than they had been 30 years prior. At an age where most icons would have long since retired to the golf course, Eastwood remained one of the most feared and respected figures in the game. Naturally, the two men, once frequent collaborators, drifted into separate orbits. It wasn't some juicy dramatic feud, but simply life pulling them down different roads. Years rolled by without a single project together, and they barely acknowledged each other in the press. For the die-hard fans, that silence was loud. Was there unspoken beef? Had the friendship crumbled? Or was this just the natural decay of a Hollywood relationship? When the news broke that Hackman had passed, those lingering questions suddenly felt heavy. Eastwood, a man famous for his stoic, tough guy persona, truly felt the crushing weight of that loss. It wasn't just about saying goodbye to a co-star. It was about losing one of the last surviving members of their breed, a generation that built Hollywood on grit and raw talent, rather than green screens and social media followers. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Eastwood didn't hold back. He hailed Hackman as one of the greatest talents to ever step in front of a camera, a guy whose mere presence elevated a B-movie script. Whether playing a corrupt sheriff or a broken anti-hero, Hackman didn't just recite lines, he transformed. For Eastwood, Unforgiven wasn't just another notch on the belt. It was the ultimate testament to what they could do together. That film stands as their final definitive word on the genre they both helped define. But Eastwood also took a moment to reflect on the human being behind the legend. Hackman, despite being a giant on screen, never gave a damn about the celebrity circus. He didn't chase clout and he didn't indulge in the Hollywood excesses. He did. The work crushed it and went home. That was something Eastwood deeply respected and honestly maybe even envied a little bit. Their last conversations were reportedly filled with reflection. Two old war horses looking back on an industry they moulded, an industry that had since changed beyond recognition. With Hackman gone, Eastwood found himself looking around an empty room and realising just how few of the old guard were left standing. The Hollywood of their prime, built on sweat, emotion, and an unwavering commitment to storytelling, was fading into the sunset. The machine moves on, ruthless as ever, but some legacies are too heavy to wash away. Hackman's footprint is permanent. As long as people are still hitting play on Unforgiven, The French Connection, and every other masterpiece he touched, he is never truly gone. He remains gritty, unforgettable, and as real as it gets. For Eastwood, this wasn't just the loss of a buddy. It was the closing of a massive chapter in history. But legends don't just disappear into the ether. They live on in the frames they left behind, in the stories that outlast us all. And Gene Hackman's story, his talent, his dedication, his quiet yet commanding force, is going to endure for generations to come. But we have to ask, what do you think Eastwood was really feeling when he reflected on Hackman's legacy? Was it pure admiration, a touch of nostalgia, or something even deeper? We want to hear what you think in the comments. Don't forget to smash that like button, share this video, and hit subscribe for more legendary stories.